Thank you. So pleased to be here with 7 other writers whose work I so greatly admire. All of the writers who are here today are participants in a project that I put together with Jon Gann, which was published in June in honor of National Pride Month. And we released 30 short videos, one a day, the Pride Poetry Poem a Day. And all of the authors have a strong connection to the greater DC region. And the videos, oh, I was just so pleased with how they came out. They're terrific. They're very short. I think the longest one is about 6 minutes. Some of them are as short as half a minute in length. And each poet is reading an original love poem. We picked love as the theme. Jon Gann and I picked that very specifically as a sort of reaction to or antidote against the pandemic. We were just feeling like we needed something really positive and life-affirming right about now. And so all 30 poets wrote poems on that theme. And then we put them all up online. They are still available. Please go to pridepoems.com. That's pridepoems.com. And you can see all 30 videos. So I asked today 7 of the poets who participated in the project if they would read, continuing with the theme, but read a longer sampling of their own original work. So we are going to start with Malik Thompson. Malik is a Black queer man from Washington, D.C. He is a bibliophile and baked goods connoisseur. He works as a bookstore manager for Black queer-owned loyalty bookstores in Petworth, D.C. He is the current co-chair of Outright DC, an annual LGBTQ plus literary festival. And take it away, Malik.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for including me in the project in this reading. And just want to say hi to all my fellow readers. Hi, Sunu, it's been forever. Hi, Reggie, it's been forever. Marlena, I saw you the other day, same Emily. But yeah, so I'm actually currently at work. So I'm going to read 2 poems and then sadly have to run away. But I'm really looking forward to re-watching this event and like seeing what everyone's reading. So, you know, break a leg, everyone. So I'm going to read 2 poems. One poem from the poem that was published in Queer Pride Poem a Day, and then another poem that was actually published in a newer DC lit mag, Struggle Mag. So yeah, let's start with the Queer Pride Poem a Day poem. This is Love Poem Satyr after Donica Kelly. And if you don't know what a satyr is like a little half man, half goat creature, top half man, bottom half goat, and like they have perpetual erections. And it's after Donica Kelly because Donica Kelly in her first book, Bestiary, wrote a series of love poems to monsters. And I was really impacted by this poem, her poem, Love Poem Satyr. So this is Love Poem Satyr after Donica Kelly. Tonight I set the chalice aside, and behind me I finally shut the door. Out here, a chill wind speaks of me, of wild trees and their cavortings of lightning. Love, I recall the stories you tell in languid night-drenched whispers. Our slender bed ablaze, dark fire pulsing in my bones. In your absence, I've become something lusting and something lost. I enter the pub and exit with a chain of paper men entangled in my horns. Thank you. So this next poem is entitled Jacob to the Angel. I don't know who's familiar with that story in the book of Genesis, like from the Bible. Jacob is in the desert. He wrestles this angel at night. They're wrestling for like a day. I don't know. I grew up Judeo-Christian, and so it's familiar to me. Anywho, I basically interpreted that as like Jacob wanting the angel to release his fluids onto his face. I don't know how explicit I can like speak at this festival. So yeah, I can speak at this festival, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this totally makes sense to me. So this is my interpretation of Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 to 32. Jacob to the angel. Alone, two men, panting in wild land, limbs woven like serpents awakening from winter. Crests of white sand flay red trenches into your back, and somehow we've struggled since nightfall. My forearm torqued deep into your chest, your fallow groin melting into mine. You reach down gently, wrench my hip free of its socket. I seek your blessing at daybreak, beg to be drenched in it. Cravings I've undungeoned just this once. And here it is, your hand, my shattered hip, owl song piercing twilight, rivulets of angel seeds soaking my bare shoulder. I asked your name, and you, aloof, trunculate, refuse to be known. So I named the land instead. So yeah, those are the two poems I have. And I can stick around for like a minute or two more. So yeah, I will return it back to you, Kim. Thank you again.
Thank you, Malik. Just love both those poems of yours. So our next reader is Emily Holland. Emily is a genderqueer lesbian writer living in Washington, D.C. She received her MFA from American University. Their poems have appeared or are forthcoming in publications including HAD, Black Warrior Review, Nat Brute, Dialogist, and Homology Lit. Their work has been supported by the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities and Sundress Academy for the Arts. Currently, she is the editor of Poet Lore, America's oldest poetry magazine, and she's the incoming chair of Outright DC. She is immediately succeeding two of our readers today, Malik, who we just heard from, and Marlena, who's coming up later. Please welcome Emily Holland.
Thank you. And thank you, Kim, so much for letting me be part of this amazing reading and this amazing project. I'm going to start with the poem that's featured in the Poem a Day project. My partner teaches me to speak. She spoon feeds me syllables in bed. I repeat after her letter combinations we don't have in English. Consonants stick in my throat. My tongue does not yet know how to roll, how to twist into position. Each night, another word. Head, eyes, nose, mouth. Language starts with the body. She moves my hands around her face, and I name each part again. I am not always a good student. Some nights we repeat lessons I've forgotten. She tells me words for everyday things. I learn how to tell her I'm thirsty or hungry, hot or cold. Later, she teaches me to ask, are you hungry? Are you cold? Of course, the curse words are easy. I can say shit and pussy with the same sharp point of my teeth. I master please, and I'm sorry, and thank you for when I know I'll need them. One night, I ask how to say, I love you. She tells me in 2 small breaths. I repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. Thank you. I had a hard time deciding what I wanted to read, but I think I'm going to make a choice out of left field. So this one is called Lesbian Bed Death as Digital Mimesis. It uses memes as a reference point in the poem. So if you've seen any Kate Blanchett memes circulating around the internet, it kind of relies on them as sort of image pivots. So this one was published in Black Warrior Review. Sometimes I miss the newness, the unfamiliarity. My hands did not always know your body like this, spent, bored, quiet. Kate Blanchett as Carol, and she's smoking, staring, thinks about pussy in silence. We're each on our phones in bed, each refusing to cross the expansive mattress between our backs. I airdrop an image without laughing or saying anything. Kate Blanchett and Sandra Bullock in suits, in Comic Sans running across the top. This is lesbian sex. Remember our first kiss years ago, the one I almost walked away from, out there in the freezing rain. You begged me to stay. Thank you. And I'll just read one more, a new poem. So I'd like to end on something new. This is called Sometimes I Think of Gender When I'm Not Awake. Don't tell anyone. I'm kissing girls in my dreams again. It's news that I'm dreaming again. Must be this heat. Damn heat. Sheets weigh me down like waves, my mind floating. In a dream, I wear a suit to feel like a boy. It fits a little too big, like on a boy, not a man. The girls I kiss are too cool to care what I wear. Don't tell them. I don't know what I am, and I don't mean who. I mean, I don't know what I am outside of the dream, sweating in bed, trying not to touch the girl who loves me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's just so great to hear these poems. Our next reader is Joseph Ross. Joe is the author of 4 books of poetry: Raising King, Ache, Gospel of Dust, and Meeting Bone Man. His poems appear in many publications, including the New York Times Magazine, the Los Angeles Times, Poet Lore, Drum Voices Review, and the 2022 anthology, Where We Stand, Poems of Black Resilience. He's received multiple Pushcart Prize nominations and won the 2012 Pratt Library Little Patuxent Review Poetry Prize. Recently, he served as judge for the 2021 Ken Ebert Poetry Prize from Iris G. Press. He currently serves on the poetry board at the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C., and teaches English and creative writing, also in D.C. Joe Ross.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everybody. Going to start with, like others, with the poem that was in the Pride Poems project, and thanks to Kim for including me in that and in this reading. And Kim had some magical wisdom in picking the date that this poem appeared was just before our 20th anniversary. And so this poem is called Meeting, and it's for Robert. We weren't supposed to meet that night, but the June evening air was ready to speak. Friends laughed around us in their own language. We spoke in words and sipped the water beneath the words. I told you my father's name, you whispered yours. Our mothers were already conspiring in our mutual joy. The wooden walls of that dining room baptized us with quiet longing. You wrote your number on a green paper napkin that found its way to my skin. I held it close between my fingers and my chest. I still hold it there. I saw kindness at the edges of your eyes. I felt a trembling at the edges of my breath, as if someone were playing a cello in the distance, as if I had forgotten the song's name, but not its ache. Thanks. This poem actually also has a little bit of a connection to Kim. I didn't even think about this until we started, but a few weeks before the end of the school year, I took 7 of my students on a writing, walking field trip of Langston Hughes sites in Washington, D.C. So this is on a riding and walking field trip with 7 high school students exploring Langston Hughes sites in Washington, D.C. The city teaches us today with brick row houses and front stoops, bicyclists, the squeals of car brakes. Hurried drivers watch us waiting on a sidewalk, riding on Hughes' front steps. Bikes hiss by, their spokes sparkle against a gray sky. My students gaze at Langston's windows, wondering what poem began here, what poem ended here, what poem was tossed away. One moment they are a riot of laughter, shining with silly, colliding with each other. The next, they search the sky for wounds. I watch them sitting on his stoop. These are serious boys, writing words they mean, seeking words that will be true in America. I wonder about these boys. Where do they begin? Where do they end? What loneliness or love will carry them? Thanks, and let me finish with another teaching poem on leading a poetry workshop for my school's Gay Students Club. 25 boys in my school's LGBTQ club sit before me, waiting for me to offer some prescription of words that might birth a poem from them. Maybe they hope I will see their plight in this hour, this place that fears and hates them at the same time. I saw 2 of them holding hands at lunch yesterday. Most of their parents don't even know this club exists. These boys live in a dangerous daylight that is not light, a darkness passing as living, a gasp they hope others might mistake for breathing. But today they listen, ask, write, pens caress paper, a safe touch. One boy stares at the cross on the wall as he writes. He seems to be living a sacrament of silence. But when they read aloud what they have written, a visible truth becomes clear. The spy's invisible ink slowly emerges from the paper. These boys are brave. These boys look into the bones of this world and dare it to look back.
Ah, fabulous. Thank you
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much, Joseph Ross. Our next reader is Tafisha A. Edwards. Tafisha is author of 2 chapbooks, In the Belly of the Mirror and The Bloodlet. She's a recipient of the 2022 Regional Artist Award from the Maryland State Arts Council and a Ruby's Artist Grant from the Robert Deutsch Foundation. Her work has appeared in the Georgia Review, Apogee Journal, Poetry Northwest, Washington Square Review, Winter Tangerine, and other print and online publications. Tafisha A. Edwards. Tafisha, you need to unmute. There we go.
I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. Thank you for bearing with me as I pop in the room. And this is my cat, Elvira, who will also be reading with me. I'm going to read the poem that I submitted for the wonderful Pride poem collection. That's what I've been calling it, saying that to my friends. The name of this poem is I Want Your, and it's after the song of the same name by George Michael. I want your sex is my communion wine, class 1 firearm, pale ribbon on my handbasket to hell. Your sex earns a measurable vasocongestional response. Kiss my throat and my pussy inflates. Your sex as plea, deeper. Let me suck your marrow. As promise, darkling I listen. With my body, I be worship. Your sex like Halley's Comet, Aurora Borealis, Ouroboros, as manifest destiny, 4th of July firework, and nipple piercings like bullets in my mouth. Your sex as distraction, as heartbeat chant. Have you ever been so lonely, like you felt you were the only one in this world? Have you ever wanted to play with someone so much you'd take any boy or girl? And the foot on my face, and my foot on the gas. Your sex as my mother tongue, as my hand on my parents' locked bedroom door. Baby, the arch of your back makes me feel omnipotent. My hands spread my legs, a love letter between for you. I want your sex, sex, sex. Thank you. Just gonna close that door. And the final poem I'm going to be reading is from a wonderful anthology that I was lucky to be a part of called Not Without Our Laughter by the Black Ladies Brunch Collective, blurbed by Joseph Ross and supported by all the lovely people on this panel. So the name of the poem is called, I'm so sorry. The poem is called Baby What That Mouth Do. Translation, can you please lick my pussy tonight? Which is another way to say, I hope you don't mind I didn't shave because I didn't want a razor so close to my clit. Code for, I'm trying to rebel against the patriarchy, and someone on Reddit told me this was a great way to start. A euphemism for, this will determine if I need to break up with you, so licking my pussy is pretty monumental to the future of our relationship, implying deep thought about our relationship has occurred, but does not mean I don't like you tremendously, only that I have options, underscoring the fact that I am 24 and I'm married, underscoring the fact I am not my mother. I did something different, circling back to my family probably didn't think different included flexitine, polyamory, and Black feminist socioeconomic theory. But I know this is what they say. She was always a strange one, a thing that my family must deal with. This thought provides me great joy in times of drought, wherein drought is an opaque way of mentioning my not too long ago mental collapse, something that may or may not still be in progress. Although it should be noted, I did not die. Morbid and necessary as justification for this poem, which was written in spite and not because of that momentary lapse in sanity. In all fairness, this poem may be a manifestation of my own laziness, which is not the worst thing if you think about it. And while you think about it, give me your hand, touch my slippery slick, see your darling Nikki's unfurl. Love, all of this love, uncoiling just for you. Thank you. And shout out to my cat, the best compliment.
Thank you so much, Tafisha. Hey, is it true that your book is available for pre-order now?
It's actually available for order at tafishaedwards.com. It's called In the Belly of the Mirror. And thank you so much for bringing that up, Kim.
Yeah, no, I didn't have it in your bio, and Sunu just gave me a little nudge and said, new book. So I'm very excited. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Marlena Chertock is our next reader. Marlena has 2 books of poetry, Crumb-Sized Poems, and On That One-Way Trip to Mars. She is queer, disabled, and uses her skeletal dysplasia as a bridge to scientific poetry. Chertock serves as co-chair of Outright DC. We've mentioned this earlier, an annual literary festival. She's on the board of Split This Rock, a nonprofit that cultivates poetry that bears witness to injustice and provokes social change. Her poetry and prose has appeared in AWP's The Writer's Notebook, Breath and Shadow, the Deaf Poets Society, Lambda Literary Review, Little Patuxent Review, Washington Independent Review of Books, Word Gathering, and more. Marlena Chertock.
Thank you all so much. It's really an honor to be reading with you all. And thank you again to Kim and Jon for producing this incredible project. I think I'm going to start not with the one that was published in Pride Poems, because I'm feeling it. This one is called Short Curve. 1. Papa picked up a pencil and carefully drew a faint mark over her head on the basement door. The tradition started before she was born. He traced his son's and daughter's height for years, their initials on the door frame in a race to see who would reach dad first. She understood inch by inch engraved in the wood, not by being plotted on the doctor's growth chart, a chart tracking trees, and she was a seed. Other girls her age were far above, on the thick line of the normal curve. Her lonely dot was making its slow progression on a curve of its own. 2. Hidden in this body are an 80-year-old's bones. Its joints sound like tree branches in an ice storm. A pill a day keeps the inflammation away, but these bones are special. These bones are hungry. They want hundreds of pills a day, heating pads, foot insoles, massages, Epsom salt baths. These bones keep finding more ways to show pain. They want bone disorder to be her middle name, shouting to be seen past their x-rays. They keep her up at night, whispering, "Notice me." Thank you. I'm going to read this one called Unfold Me Gently. Unfold me gently. I'm brittle, calcified stardust, me mineral dense, collagen quirky. Unravel the cartilage from my joints, throw my bones to the unloved dogs. The curve of my ear canal might make a suitable home for a hermit crab. Send my misshapen hips to Maryland, their geographies match. Unhinge each of my vertebrae, jellify me. I was never straight to begin with. Thank you so much. And I will close with the poem that was published in DC Pride Poems. Again, you can find all of the videos online and definitely check them out because it's an honor to be in company with these writers. This is called When You've Got the Bugs. It feels like worms wriggling in my belly, nervous beetles skittering across my chest. They have an uncountable number of legs. Will they crowd my heartbeats, keep me from trying without knowing what's to come? Or maybe it feels more like a persistent firefly fluttering in my brain jelly, off and on, flickering a reminder, hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. You feel me still. Your feelings are real, distracting me throughout the day in the best way. Liking her, that other word scares the cicadas out of you, feels powdery, like a moth you barely touch and it disintegrates. It feels like you're peering through a glass-wing butterfly, a window into what everyone else seems to have experienced. It must be protected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, and once again, to find the project online, go to www.pridepoems.com. So our next reader is Sunu P. Chandy. Sunu is a poet, queer woman of color, civil rights attorney, parent, and the daughter of immigrants from Kerala, India. She lives in Washington, D.C., and her collection of poems, My Dear Comrades, will be published by Regal House in the spring of 2023. I understand they've just dropped the design for the book cover, and it is gorgeous. I'm very excited about this book. Sunu completed her BA in Peace and Global Studies and Women's Studies at Earlham College, her JD from Northeastern Law School, and her MFA in poetry from CUNY, C-U-N-Y, Queens College. Sunu P. Chandy.
Hi, everyone. What a treat to be with this group, this wonderful group of queer poets. Thank you, Kim, for pulling us together. Loved everyone's work so far. I am going to read 3 short poems. I believe they're love poems. We'll see what you think. And then I'll talk for a second about the poem that is part of the project. The first poem is new, Ground Up Cadaver Bones, pandemic poem number 213. Canceling 2 dental visits during the pandemic was all that it took to lose my first adult tooth. Lose it, gone, lose it pulled out after 3 days of level 8, cancel all the meetings pain. The senior doctor is on parental leave and left me in the hands of Junior. The junior associate has now mentioned that his wife is very smart and that she went to Yale Law School 3 times in 2 visits. He's very proud of her. Despite that, he is kind and he cares. He explains they will use the bones of a cadaver to make a bone graft to fill in some of the gap caused by my newly missing adult tooth. Sensing my alarm, he assures, don't worry, it's all FDA approved. Then your own bone will come into place and merge with that graft and take its own shape there. I'm wondering whose bones I will be built upon on this rainy Thursday afternoon. And one day in the future, whose new bones may mine encourage forth. When I asked the hygienist to show me the size of the cadaver bone, she explains, no, sweetie, it's ground up bone. We just use what we need. Afterwards, the lift now costs $27 and I've pandemic lost my commuting bus pass. I walk halfway home in the drizzle with someone else's bones sewn right into my gums, stitched in tight. And I'm forewarned multiple times by Junior, do not be alarmed, do not be surprised if you feel your mouth bleed. Thank you. The second poem is called Symmetry, and it's in my day job. We're working on a filing to the Supreme Court, don't ask me why, about affirmative action, because our opponents know they can take away all the rights in all the settings, and so they are bringing that case forward next. So we are leading, multiple civil rights groups saying, for women of color, for people of color, for Black people, for all of us, like, you need to have this. But it's on the chopping block with everything else. This poem is called Symmetry. As my daughter took her day to 5th grade, beginning of the year standardized assessments on the other side of this wall, I listened to my former boss's boss tell the First Circuit Court that the US government no longer believes in affirmative action. This was in the last administration. And so he says, if colleges review the whole candidate, including race, they're engaging in illegal race discrimination. I reread my poem on affirmative action from long ago and wonder if that's the one I should share at a conference. That poem was inspired by this line from a job advertisement. The candidate should hail from a well-regarded law school. As for the 5th grade parents, we were given careful instructions to encourage, but not to help our children with their standardized tests. The school provided a handout entitled Supportive Phrases to Use with Your Students. In the 2-page document, it included versions of do not help your student 4 different times. It then gave sample language to use instead of helping your student. For math, they suggested we say, try working it out on paper. For reading, they suggested we say, try going back to the text. They suggested we say, it's okay if you don't know the answer. They suggested we say, make a guess, move on to the next one. After the student completes the assessment, they suggested we say, I'm really proud of you. You did a great job taking your time, showing your work, persisting, through challenging questions. On the other side of the wall, I remind my daughter to take breaks, to drink water, to eat her green grapes. And after 2 days of tests with so many unknowable answers, the only question she had for me was, what's symmetry? Thank you. And the last poem, which is very much on point about love, it's entitled Things I Didn't Know I Loved. The stack of books always staring me down, watching the children's movie not once but twice, an ex-friend reaching out even though we will not connect. The memory of Sapna on top of the sadness, watching the evening's world news with my daughter, her crush on the anchor man, routinely wearing pajama bottoms for big meetings during the pandemic, tennis drills outside at age 48. Age 48. Middle management, pistachio ice cream, glitter nail polish, but only if the glitter is gold. Kritika's borrowed choker necklace. She told me to take it to wear it with the black and gold salwar. Quarantine. Chatting with Jeffrey all night long after stopping by his dorm to borrow 10 music CDs. Still holding on to my many cousins who missed my wedding. The garden in Fort Greene, planting flowers, learning about mulch from Oza, chatting in the basement, doing laundry side by side with that landlord's wife. The coffee shop in Brooklyn, the one that never had the things I wanted from its menu. Thank you. Instead of reading another short poem, I'm gonna just use my last minute to say that the poem that was part of the Pride Poems collection is called Too Pretty, and it's available on Split This Rock's website and also at the link that you'll see as part of this description. And the last thing I'll say is, as Kim mentioned, my book, My Dear Comrades, will be published in March of 2023. And if you just Google My Dear Comrades and my name, Sunu Chandy, it's available for pre-order. And you can get it from the Regal House Press website or anywhere where books are sold. And my last shout out is to the cover artist, Ragni Agrawal, and you'll see her name if you look it up, a wonderful South Asian artist, and it's her work on the cover. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone. This was such a treat.
Congratulations again, Sunu, and thank you for that terrific reading. Our next reader is Jonah Coulson. Jonah's first collection of poetry, Said Through Glass, won the 2018 Gene Feldman Poetry Prize from the Washington Writers Publishing House. His poems have appeared in the Southern Review, the Massachusetts Review, Antioch Review, and elsewhere. His translations and interviews can be found in Prairie Schooner, Tupelo Quarterly, and the Writer's Chronicle. He's also the poetry editor of WWPH Writes, a bi-weekly literary journal. He's an associate professor of ESL at Montgomery College in Maryland and lives in Washington, DC. Jona Colson.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you to Jon for this amazing, wonderful project that I'm so thrilled to be a part of. I loved all the music, like the intro disco music. Like every time I would click on it, I hear that music, like, yeah, poems coming. It was awesome. So thank you for that. It's a wonderful project, and I'm really happy to be here reading with all these wonderful fellow poets. So I'm going to read 3 short poems. I'll start with the poem that was included in the Pride project. It's a hustle, it's a loose hustle. It doesn't, hustle is a very strict form. It doesn't, over the years, as I've edited it, it's become looser and looser, but it still has the repetition and sort of pentameter a bit. It's called Hazel San Jose, and San Jose refers to San Jose, Costa Rica. This is an older poem. Traveling and love. And when Kim asked if I had love poems, I think I have like 3, and that's what I'm going to read today. I don't know, everything else seems to creep in, but So this is Hazel San Jose. I remember when he kissed me in San Jose, in La Plaza de la Cultura in the early evening of San Jose. As beads of perspiration formed underneath his hands, we walked through the streets of San Jose. I canvassed the bed to wake him in his dreams, where I speak to him in English, not the Spanish of San Jose. In the window as he dressed, the glass showed the pink of his body. Soft lamplight fell across him from the city of San Jose. Not far from Calle Zamora, he kissed me again, then walked away. I watched him fade into the city of San Jose. If you've ever been to San Jose, Costa Rica, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Two more short poems. This poem is actually kind of one of my favorites. I read it a lot because, again, I don't have many love poems. It's inspired by a short story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez called The Beautiful Drowned Man. The Beautiful Drowned Man. Black matted hair, slippery flesh. I fished him from the sea, pulling him from warm water easily and gently, like a blue scarf from a pulsing neck. How beautiful he is, and how lost I had been on a dark, cold night, before he stirred and troubled the pools of mud around my feet. And my last poem today is, I'm not quite sure if I've actually read it before. Again, it's an older poem from my book, Said Through Glass. It's called A Room Cool as Pearls, and it actually was slightly inspired by some of Anne Carson's work. A room cool as pearls is something I want to last forever. A sun throwing dawn across the air, the sounds of breathing through space like hair. A body familiar and satin across thin blue sheets. The way to hold on is afterward so clear. And perhaps this is our time to amaze each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonah. Our final reader is Reggie Cabico. Reggie is a spoken word pioneer, having won the New Eurekan Poets Cafe Grand Slam and later taking top prizes in 3 national poetry slams. His television credits include 2 seasons of HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam, NPR's Snap Judgment, and TEDx Talk. His work appears in over 30 anthologies, including Aloud, Voices from the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, Spoken Word Revolution, and the Outlaw Bible of American Poetry. Reggie received the 2006 Writers for Writers Award from Poets and Writers for his work teaching at-risk youth at Bellevue Hospital. Reggie Cabico.
Wow. Oh my God, Kim Roberts, thank you so much. What an incredible group of poets to be present here virtually. Thank you for the DC Rainbow News as we just met. So I've got 4 poems. I will start with the poem that I perform in Pride Poems. And it is called Sometimes Sexual Healing Requires a Blindfold. You're like a little dragon fruit. You're like a comet, powdered cardamom about your puckered lip. Your lips are lassies. One of my words about you, smoothie, I whisper smoothly in bed, this smoothing you, fit pie of a meringue man, you, and then alone with Chromebook over my breasts, these keys and letters brushing you in the Google Docs, going gaga, wagging, lagging against sleep in the nightlight like a lighthouse. Light me up, martini, with your electrolyte juice. So The next two poems, shout out to Jonah Coulson, who published this in Washington Writers Publishing House issue number 27. This next poem is Love for the Body. And you don't have to mute yourself, but when I say wheel, you say wheel, wheel of chakras. My spine is an obsidian sphinx with no sense of humor. My pubic bone is a 24/7 casino slot machine. My ribs are marching bands of bottlenose dolphins blowing bazookas. My heart is a cinematic red carpet with thumbprint apricot cookies. My vocal cords are hydrangeas in full bloom. My intuition is a jack-in-the-box with Jill tendencies. My crown is a little Filipino boy singing Tina Turner's Private Dancer at Chuck E. Cheese. All right. And this next poem is also in the same issue number 27. So I do have a boyfriend. I know it's a shock. It just took a pandemic for me to get over myself. So this is a love poem. It's called Arboretum. It's nice to be led across the meadow by a guy you're smitten by, and he smitten by you, and you both stumble on lilac lands, and you realize love is a bit like lilac lands. You just never expected to get there till you smell the lilacs together. And I am going to close with this last poem, and you can see that this is a love poem to the world. It's called, well, little preface. I was invited to read at the Whitney Biennial in April of this year. And 3 days before the reading, I got COVID. So while that sucked, at least I have a poem, and it's called Missing the Whitney Biennial Reading. I feel like a canceled Broadway show. A chorus boy who stopped their debut on the Great White Way because of COVID. CT. I will wear my leopard two-piece and high heels in my living room. Watch my tribe read their poems on a live stream instead. Sit fever-fatigued on the leather sofa, seeing the painted fingernails of a soot-covered hand over rubble. A Ukrainian makeup artist recognizes the polish. From quarantine, I will prance about my tiny living room and celebrate that I too once pounded the pavements of New York City in search of an open mic. You could live off $7 an hour cash back then. Red beans and yellow rice were $3 at the Chinese takeout. How blessed to be able to exhale through an unstuffed nostril. How blessed to not be dead. How blessed to be remembered from afar. Thank you very much.
Aw, thank you. Oh, thank you to all of these incredible readers. This gives you some idea of just the amazing scope of talent among LGBTQ plus writers in the DC region. Please do go to www.pridepoems and look at all 30 of the videos. Again, Jon Gann and I were just so amazed and pleased at the range and how they all came out. Thank you again to our readers today. Once again, Malik Thompson, Emily Holland, Joseph Ross, Tafisha A. Edwards, Marlena Chertock, Sunu P. Chandy, Jona Colson, and Reggie Cabico. Thank you again. www.pridepoems.com.